So this one's going to be a follow-up episode from the week before last episode, which is you're never going to get your perfect day unless, right? And got some good feedback on that. And so we thought we're going to dig a little deeper into how do you actually design that? Because you'd think it'd be easy, pretty straightforward, but it's actually takes some work. And again,
Yeah.
we talked about if you can't if you can't say what your perfect day is, how are you ever going to have it? And the whole purpose of saying like perfect day is kind of like a wishy-washy thing, but the moments of your life are genuinely, just add them all up, right? That is your life. And so if you're not having those moments during your day that you want, then that's not the life you're really wanting to live. Is it your finances are off? Is it you're not spending quality time with people? All those things, right? I don't know what it is for you, but there's elements that are going to make your day right, and then your days equal your weeks, your months, and your year, and then your life. So if you don't take time today to figure this out and start adding at least elements of your what you want in your life, then it's just going to be a miserable life. You're always going to be wanting more. And so today we'll talk about some breakdowns and step by steps, and hopefully you get some value of this, and you're going to look up in a month and say, man, I'm enjoying myself more because I've added these things in. And you could look back and be like, well, because I added this step and I added that step, and how can I do more of this? And so that's what we're going to discuss today. And Sean, if you want to add on to that, on what the guests can expect, the audience can get from listening to this.
Yeah, man. I think you hit the nail right on the head. And when I think about it, it's like when I hear what is the perfect day, what does that look like? What does that smell like? What does that feel like? And and I would always remember to listen. I was listening to podcasts and mentors of mine over the last several years, and they would always say that. What do you want it to smell like in the mornings? I was like, well, what do you mean? What do you want it to smell like in the mornings? Do you want that coffee brewing as soon as you wake up in the morning? That smell as soon as that aroma smell. Is there an air freshener? Is there a mistifier? What's the little air fresheners? Not the air fresheners, but the misters that are in
Yeah. The Febreze
not
things
the
that shoot out.
Febreze. You see them in like massage parlors where they
Oh
have
yeah, the
the mist.
Scentsy, the
Yeah,
scents. Yeah.
yeah, man. Just like, what do you want your morning to smell like? And so for me, so many years, I was just on the grind. I was on the hustle. I was on the hamster wheel. I was on the rat race every morning. Just woke up, do the same thing, check the phone, social media, emails, go to work, come back, Netflix it, do the same thing, sit on the couch. And I was like, dude, there's got to be more to life than this. What do I, And so fast forward all these years later, I was like, dude, I'm drawing the line in the sand. I'm going to figure out what it is that I want my day to look like. And I visualize this. And when we asked on the last episode, it's like, what does your perfect day look like? Every time you ask somebody that, there's one or two responses that typically happen within that moment. One, they're going to say, well, that's a great question. And then they're going to sit there and think about it for the next 5, 6, 7 minutes. Or the second thing is going to be like, well, I have no clue. And they don't answer you. And I've asked that question to several people, and they've all said, one of those two instances. Well, I think what it does is it helps us slow down and go, well, what is possible? Because a lot of times we don't think it's possible. But when you start subconsciously thinking, well, what if it could be possible? Maybe you don't live that ideal day tomorrow, but what if you lived 5% of that ideal day?
Yeah.
10%,
Because you might have a
15%.
job you hate. Like imagine you might be listening to this and be like, I absolutely hate my job. Like I detest going into it. So how am I ever going to live my perfect day if I got this 8 hour grind of somewhere I don't want to go? Well, what does your morning still look like? You still have a morning, and you still have elements that you can control there. And if those aren't ideal or optimal, you could still have that be significantly better than it is right now. Like you're talking about those smells, right? Like that's a simple thing you can totally bypass. But we're talking about step by step here. That's exactly what we're talking about. Like a simple little element added in. Well, now you've woken up version of you that woke up with not the perfect smells, and this is could apply to a number of different things. And there's a version of you that does. It's gonna be a
Yep.
slightly better day. You just upped your day, you leveled up your day with just that one little thing. What else could you stack before you go off to the job that you don't like, right? So then you're still thinking, but I hate my job. Well, then that's going to be part of creating your ideal day. What would you need to do to get out of that? Right. So now you're starting off with the good smells, right? That just bumped you up slightly. Okay. Now,
Yes.
now you're eating the better foods. Well, that's another 1%er. And then you're doing a little bit of exercise, and there's 3% better than it was before. And then you can start working on, well, if I don't like the job that I have, the 3% better version of you is going to start thinking of more strategic things to do to get out of that job you don't like, right? And so you're going to start to become a different version of you that was just doing the mundane like you just described. And then at the end of this might be a year, maybe a year and a half, maybe 3 months. You're not in that job anymore because of these little tweaks that you made. It's possible.
Yes. One of the things that we did about 18 months ago, 24 months ago, is I feel like that was super powerful and impactful. And if you're a listener, an audience listening to this, I would encourage you to do this. Take a pen and paper, draw a circle, a pie chart, and then chop it up into, I think it's 8 different pieces. And then in those 8 different pieces, you put within that pie chart, you put friends and family, spirituality, personal growth, uh, finances, fun and recreation, health and wellness. So there's like 6 to different 8, and you can find this on Google as well. There's 6 to 8 different areas of life, in other words. And so what this helps you do is, because typically 1 to 2 areas of your life that you're living every single day, maybe you're a great father, maybe you're a great wife, maybe you're a great dad, or maybe you're a great business owner, or maybe you're just super ripped and great in fitness. You're probably doing pretty good in 1 to 2 areas of life. Well, seeing these other areas of life, what I typically do is I look at this on a weekly basis, because where focus goes, energy flows. So if I'm focused on 1 or 2 areas of life, I'm typically dominating in that area of life because that's where my focus is going. Well, these other areas of life typically lag behind because of my flaws, my struggles, and my weaknesses. So what I do is I'm being intentional about, okay, where can I really spice it up? Where can I be intentional about spirituality this week? Right? Maybe that's opening up my Bible, reading devotions, having a prayer with my wife. And so by looking at it every single morning, and I do this when I wake up at 4 a.m., from 4 a.m. to 4:45, that is the first thing I do. Well, by doing that, in the step by step, is this allows me to be intentional and be aware of what area of life can I work on today that's going to align with my goals and my values and my beliefs. And so it's not like that every single day where I focus on just one area. I'm more so on just being aware or mindful of, hey, I'm not going to put this to the wayside for the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I'm going to try something different today. Like, for instance, if it's spirituality, I read the Bible for 5 or 10 minutes. And then after that, I get done reading a devotion. So whereas in the past, if I'm not aware of being intentional about improving my spirituality, I don't do that. And I don't read the devotion. I don't read the Bible. Maybe I don't go to church, and maybe I don't plug myself in there. And so that's important to me. That's important to my values and my beliefs. So I make sure I'm intentional about it by doing that pie chart, writing the pie chart down, and then doing the pieces of the pie, and making sure I list out the pieces of the pie of the areas of life. Because a lot
We
of
used to do
times,
that in the mastermind group. Remember, we used to at the start, all the
yep,
guys would go around and we'd do that, and we ended up doing highs, lows, and gratitude. But I remember doing the pie chart, and I really liked it because if it's not measured, it doesn't get managed.
exactly.
And so it really is just a highlight of touching base with all those areas that are important. And it's a feeling, it's not an actual, like if it's out of 10, I think we ended up saying remember in the mastermind group where it was out of 10 and someone was like, let's do it out of 20. And we were all like, for some reason, yeah, great idea. What's the difference between 10 and 20? But we really did kind of like that. It helped us kind of pinpoint a little more, but it was very much a feeling, an emotional attachment to that area. How did it feel?
Yeah.
Well, this week I'm a 13 out of 20. And so there was work to be done. Why? What was missing? What would get it to a 20? I think did we ask that in the mastermind group too? We'd be like, hey,
Yeah.
what would
Yeah.
get it to a 20? And
Yep.
so we'd say, well, if I did this, that would
Yes.
improve. And so not only were we kind of putting eyeballs on it, we were having to come up with ideas, solutions to making that area better. And man, week to week, we would really come back and you'd start to see improvements in those areas because we focused on them. Of course, other ones would go down, but then we would jump on those. So, yeah, I have not been doing that. And I'm 100% going to start doing that again because I just remembered the feeling I got when we were doing that. And it really was just a highlight because it's so much going on. It's hard to keep on top of all the areas. It really is. Like you get honed in and you could be 90, 100% in six of the areas or four or five of the areas, and then there's one that's off, and it can almost ruin the other ones because that feeling you're really not feeling good about that area, and so it's impacting the rest of those other areas. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that back up, man. I'm gonna start using that.
Yeah, when I'm hearing when I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about business owners and entrepreneurs that are listening to this, and people even in sales and in their jobs. And because a lot of times, we have these obligations, we have these responsibilities, we have these priorities, right? And so I'm sitting here thinking, putting myself in my shoes, like you have to be when you want to design the life that you want to live and design the day that you want to live. There's two forks in the road, right? There's the road more traveled, and those are the ones that want to live the mediocre life. We're not talking to those individuals, right? We're talking, and you're not wanting to live a mediocre life if you're listening to this podcast. The people that are wanting to get uncomfortable, wanting to live a small percentage of uncertainty and have that feeling of what is possible, and perhaps it is, those are the ones that I'm talking to because, and you may be feeling stuck, you may be feeling lost, you may be feeling not what direction do I turn to, and you can use these different tactics and tips and tricks. But at the end of the day, I think it's about making the progress and really drawing the line in the sand and not only taking action, but having that accountability group, community, coaching, whatever it may be. Because when you go off into this uncertainty, when you go off into the road that's less traveled, it can be very overwhelming. It can be very intimidating to live the perfect day that you want to live. How do I live the perfect day that I want to live? Cool. Give me the step-by-step guide. And it's not one size fits all. My biggest piece of advice would be to find out, that's the question number one, is what does your day look like? What does your perfect ideal day look like? Question mark. Stop the podcast, pause the podcast, and ask yourself that. Because here's the thing, there's no sense of listening to the podcast. There's no sense of listening anymore to this on a step-by-step guide if you don't know the answer to that. You're going through life aimless if you don't know what you want your perfect day to look like. Think about that for a second.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And this goes, you have to be intentional about it, Ewan. And this is what helped me was the different areas of life, friends and family, health and wellness, finances, wealth, spirituality, personal growth, all these different areas of life. So I was intentional about it. It's like, what do I want my day, each minute, each hour, to the moment I lay my head on the bed, to the moment I lay my head on the pillow, I want to look back and go, man, I accomplished what I wanted to today. And it's not always those all areas of life, but it's because I was able to visualize and say, this is what I want. It didn't happen overnight, but it happened fast forward several days, several months, several years. Then you start manifesting it. And so if I'm thinking about somebody that's on my mind, I'll share a story real quick. I have an individual that is a team member on one of my, at the insurance company. And for the last 2 years, he's had his head down. He's done really well. He's grown in business and he's maybe making more money than he's ever made. So that's where focus goes, energy flows, right? He's came to me and said, hey, I want to start working on well-being. I want to start working on exercising. What are some different things that I can do? And so with those individuals, I'm very cautious because, again, you can sit here and give the blueprint, right? And give them one thing to do, but people don't do it. Why? Right? Because of lost, stuck, whatever it may be. They don't know which direction to turn. They just don't want to simply put in the work. So this guy is actually put in the work. What do you want your ideal morning to look like? And so maybe you're like, that's just too much, guys. What do I want my ideal day to look like? Okay, well, what do you want your ideal morning to look like?
Yeah.
What
Great
does that look
question.
like? From the
Yeah.
moment you get up, what time do you want to get up? What time are you getting up right now? 6, but I want to get up at 5. Okay, so tomorrow morning, get up at 5:45 a.m. and have somebody that's going to hold you accountable, your spouse, your friend, maybe they buzz you on the phone, whatever it may be, whatever it's going to take. And so with this individual, we had tried all these kind of different things, and I had finally we have the run club on Saturdays every Saturday, right? And so I'm a big believer in order for something to be sustainable, you have to not only enjoy it and have fun with it, but you have to see progress, right? A lot of times, if we don't see progress as human beings, what I have found is even just to some of the things that we've talked about behind the scenes of things that we got going on and building up, level up, and live. It's very daunting. It's very hard, and if you don't have that grit and that resilience to live that perfect day, that to live that
Hmm.
perfect morning, then you're just going to throw in the towel and go back to existing, running the rat race.
You almost have to fight for it.
Yeah,
You have to fight for your perfect day
you
because
do.
you have
That's my
to
point.
because you get so bogged down to the point where you don't even have the vision. You don't even have that that thought or dream of what it could be. And if you don't have that, then there's no hope. And if there's no hope, then you won't allow. And that's probably why most people won't do the things because they don't see an outcome or a possibility of what it could be behind it.
Yeah.
Because our brains are not used to thinking that way. They're stuck in what is, and this is the way it's going to be, and continue that. And so to change the thought process, it actually feels like physical, like it's a physical struggle. It takes work. It's hard to change your thought process into, but as soon as you get that vision of what it could be, like the individual you're talking about, like he saw something for himself in the exercise, in the showing up to make it his day. And once he saw it, now he's after it. But he wasn't like that before. He was stuck. And then he saw something and was able to do it. So man, and I love what you're saying there with the don't think about your whole perfect day yet. I didn't really discuss this, but just what's your first hour? Let's knock your first, like the best hour of your morning when you wake up. You know, what's involved? Food, your mindset, the energy levels, what not to do. Don't pick up your phone in that first
Mm,
hour if that's what you would want to have, and then just tweak that 1 hour because that version of you that's doing that good hour is
yeah.
now going to be a better version of you, whatever that second hour is going to be, which we don't need to talk about yet,
Mm.
right? Like, and so without that first even 15 minutes, what's that, right? Like it's incremental moments is what your life is, like we mentioned at the start, you know.
One of the things that's on my mind that I want to bring up is, do you think, my question is to you is, do you think it's because I know there's listeners probably listening to this, like, that are just crushing it right in one area of life. And if I'm asking myself and looking myself in the mirror, is it possible to absolutely dominate what it is that you're doing in these different areas of life, and it and live not only the perfect ideal day that you want to live Monday through Sunday, but also to grow these different areas of life, get fit, grow your income, grow your spirituality, grow your personal development. Do you think it's possible, Ewan? Do you think it's possible to live your perfect day, your perfect morning, your perfect evening, the day, while the byproduct of that is growing in these different areas of life? And, for a lot of people, income is important. They're like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. That's good for you guys. You put in the work behind the scenes here. If I'm putting myself in that version of Sean's shoes, that version of Sean that does that is only a matter of time before I'm like, dude, I can't do this anymore. It's just not sustainable. I'm not happy. I'm unfulfilled. And that's what happened to me. And so then it's the version of me like, I'm going to be intentional about designing the day that I want to live. And I wasn't even focused on these other different areas of life. I just wanted to focus on how I showed up in these different areas of life by being intentional about it and aware and mindful of it. Then the byproduct of that, everything else, I'm like, oh, so now I can pour into my team members, my spouse, and be a role model for my community.
Yeah.
And everything has leveled up. So my question is to you, Ewan, do you think it's possible for somebody listening to this, where they are today, putting yourself in their shoes, that if they feel that they're on the hamster wheel, that they can start living their perfect ideal day tomorrow or morning? At the same time, what would you encourage them to do to be aware of, like, everything that's over here is the byproduct? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think if anyone can do it, and it's going to be, man, I hadn't really thought about it before. It's coming to me now. Just we're saying the first hour, just get the first 15 minutes right because
Yeah.
it's the divergence of the direction you were going versus the new direction with that 15 minutes of something that was better that's adding to your life. And so yeah, I think anything is possible. It's but then here's the key is you have to believe it, right? You have to have the vision.
That's
Where
right.
is it going to be? And I think people are, myself included, if I think back, like when was I not in that mode? And it was like it's almost this feeling of uh, what's the point?
Yep.
Like I'm not sure what I'm doing here. Like, why would I even bother? I know I don't feel good, but I don't see a way out.
Yeah.
And the way out is 1 minute at a time, right? The way out is you don't get motivated and then go do. Typically, once you start doing, you start feeling motivated, right? And so you have to start doing, even if it feels like you don't have the energy, effort, or mindset to do it. So yeah, man, I think, but it all comes down to what gets measured gets managed. And so having that, like that pie chart, like you talked about, is a huge way to really kind of gauge it. Because if you can gauge it, then you can start moving the needle on it. And man, one thing that, man, when you're saying there, I think an element of service has to be involved in people's day. And I think what gets us so bogged down is thinking about ourselves so much, where you're
Mm,
just thinking about, I'm good at this and I'm grinding out and I'm missing all these other areas. And then you start focusing on those other areas. Like you're saying there, once you got to that phase of stuck on a couch, like your very next thing that felt you getting out was helping people, serving, pouring into your people. And I'm the same way. Like once I stop thinking about myself and I start pouring into others, service, man, life will get significantly better. Just that alone, right there.
agreed. Yeah. Well, one of the things that I think about is when with, I love just absolute, just finding out like productive and efficient ways to run my day. And so if I want to do something and I can't do it right then and there because of whatever reason, it's not, maybe it's not something, it's something new, or it's something, that I haven't done before. I start, I start going down the rabbit hole of, okay, how not only how can I, but how can I systematically do this without and leverage, whether it's tools, whether it's resources, software, calendars, maybe it's somebody on my team, my spouse, that enjoys that. And so the reason I'm sharing this is because if you're listening to this and you're an entrepreneur, business owner, an entrepreneur, and from my experience, if you feel so much pressure, and I'm speaking to you right now and you can speak to this, I think a lot of times we all get pulled in so many different directions. We get so overwhelmed because we have so much going on in our life, right? The last thing we want to worry about, oh, the perfect day. How do we do that? And what I always encourage, what I always believe and instill in the people that are around me is, hey, if you go and you get up every single morning and you start making these small adjustments, you start asking yourself, who do you need to become to do the things that you want to do, in places that you want to go, in places in people that you want to see and meet, then what are the action steps that you need to take right now, this very second? Well, step one is, what do you want your ideal day to look like? And I did this with my team, Ewan. And as soon as I ask them that question on a Google Meet, or even in person, or even at lunch on a one-on-one, they light up. It's like that light bulb moment when nobody's ever asked me that question. And they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. So when I ask them that question, then because they've done the work behind the scenes, because of the accountability, right? Then they now know what's possible. Okay, cool. My job as a leader is to, how can we get you to that perfect day? And so for one of my individuals, he's always wanted a 3-day weekend. So I said, okay, cool. Well, what does that look like? What would you be doing on Friday? Who would you be hanging out with? What time would you get up? And so he starts answering all these questions, right? So what happens when you start asking yourself these questions? Because he's doing the work, it starts becoming real. Like, oh, what would I need to do Monday through Thursday to produce the same amount of results, to write the same amount of business, to produce the same amount of income, to get that third day off,
You start
right?
planning it out and it becomes tangible because it's on paper. It's like when you're having difficult thoughts or you feel overwhelmed. Once you write it down on paper, you're
Yep.
like, oh, it's not, it's actually, you can touch the paper and it's almost real. It's out of your head and you can
Yep.
start managing it better. And yeah, I think, yeah, you start writing things down about your day. You're like, well, that's not completely unattainable. That's
Right.
actually very possible.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's just, I think it's also too, like, having these conversations, right, whether it's with a spouse, or whether it's a employer, or whether it's with somebody that you respect. It's just having the conversations, like figuring out what's possible, and giving your hope. Because think about me and you, like behind the scenes, we, if we don't have these conversations about living the perfect day and what's possible, are you where you are today? Right? Are you designing the day that you want to live today by at the same time still producing results?
Yeah.
And so I just think it's very can be very lonely, can be very overwhelming to design that perfect morning, to design that perfect day, if you don't take the time to ask yourself those questions. And that's my biggest piece of advice, would be to see what that looks like and then share it with us. So if you're listening to this, man, DM us and drop it in the comments on what your perfect day looks like. If you're listening to this on YouTube or Spotify, Apple, iTunes, we'd love to hear your perfect day and hold you accountable wherever we
Yeah.
can.
Just one thing. Start with one thing. Add it in. Like that would be the ultimate step. Just what one different thing that you would like to have in there, and
Yeah.
let it grow. Let it grow from there. Let it become the normal, and then you add another thing.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can share.
And
I want to share the story and then we can wrap things up. Here recently, like I was telling you earlier, the gentleman that works for me, he has had his head down and he wanted to start exercising in 2024. So one of the things as a leader that's important to me is just to create environments to involve people and to bring them in, impact and serve in the different areas of life that I enjoy doing, and fitness is one of them. So we've created the Level Up and Live Run Club. So if you're listening to this, you're in Conroe, Montgomery County, quick plug. We meet up every Saturday, 5:30 a.m. and more than
free to
welcome. It's
come.
free. Yep. So, and we're out by 6:30 a.m. But anyways, this guy has been showing up every Saturday for the last, I guess it's been 2 months. And it was a struggle, for him to get there, to show up. But every single time that he's continued to show up and walk on the track, jog, he started walking, started jogging, then he started running. And then last Saturday, I challenged him and several other guys to do bleachers with me, 6 bleachers with me at the very end. And he was up for the challenge, said yes, didn't even think about it. And he completed six bleachers. And this guy 2 months ago would have been struggling to complete half of those bleachers. And this guy not only completed the 6 bleachers, but he also kept pace with another guy that had been coming to the run club for over a year now. And his explosiveness, Ewan, his and you saw this, his energy, his vitality, and the way he showed up last Saturday. I don't know if you could tell, but I could tell something deep down inside this man's soul has shifted
I saw a
because
leader. I saw a leader. I felt leader coming out of him.
exactly, because he has manifested and done the work behind the scenes. What does he want his morning to look like? Not his entire day, okay? Not his entire day, but what does he want his morning to look like on a Saturday morning at 5:30? How does he want to feel at 6:30 a.m., right? When he's done. Every single time he's left and got in his car, he told me last Saturday, he goes, dude, I feel good.
Yes, that's right.
And
You're
to
never
me,
gonna feel bad about that.
that's living your ideal morning, your perfect day. So
Feeling good.
it's just beautiful. And so how do you do more of that, right? And so now he is on the progress and building momentum to do more of that. What does he want his 6:30 to 7:30 to look like? His 7:30 to 8:30 to look like? And see, if he puts in the same amount of work, if you're listening to this, if you put in the same amount of work that he did by getting to where he was with the run club, it's not if, it's when he is living the perfect day, the ideal day that he wants to live, by designing that, because he's putting in the work and asking himself the questions, what does he want his day to look like?
He's fighting for it.
He's fighting for it. You got to
Yeah.
fight for it, man. If you don't fight for it, then there's no point in listening to this podcast.
Doesn't happen by accident. That's for
Nope.
sure. Can't
Yeah.
happen. It's just not possible. But man, I love that story. It fires me up, dude. I'm excited. It makes me want to go run.
Awesome, man. Well,
Awesome,
that's all I
man.
got. So, hey, thanks for everybody for listening. Again, super grateful for you. If you haven't already, make sure to share this, tag us on Instagram or Facebook. We love to see your perfect day, and put in the show note or put in the comments what you like about the show. And then outside of that, that's all I got.
Level up and live.
Level up and live.